of the city where he lived. 3 people were killed and several others wounded in the gun attack on Tuesday. Gavin Lee reports from Strasbourg.
The scene in the suburbs of Strasbourg, where the search for the suspected gunman of Tuesday's attack ended with the death of 29-year-old Cherif Chekatt. The French elite anti-terrorism unit, RAID, led the operation, ending the 48-hour manhunt. Eyewitnesses here say they heard gunfire as the police and military teams moved in.
When I left the McDonald's, I need to go home, and they blocked the road, and I heard a few gunshots, and it was very strange.
29-year-old Cherif Chekatt was born in Strasbourg from an Algerian family. Authorities say he was a known criminal, convicted 27 times for petty crime, but was radicalized in prison, and when released last year was placed on a security threat list of individuals monitored for possible extremism. It was here at the Christmas markets in Strasbourg, the oldest and most famous in France, where the attack was carried out. Police say Cherif Chekatt was carrying a pistol and a knife, shooting and stabbing people in the streets as others ran for their lives. Chekatt is said to have been confronted by soldiers patrolling the markets who shot him in the arm, though he escaped by taxi, ordering the driver to take him to the Neudorf area, 15 minutes drive south of the city. There was a second exchange of gunfire with police, though he escaped and hadn't been seen since. Special forces carried out an earlier raid in Neudorf this afternoon, saying they found nothing and told reporters they were sure he wasn't there. 3 people were killed in the attack, 12 more were injured. Tonight the city is notably quiet. People living here speak of their fear of the last few days and sheer relief that it appears to have come to an end.
That report there by Gavin Lee. Let's take a look now at some of the day's other news. And the European Union has stressed that last month's agreement between Britain and the EU cannot be renegotiated, but it has promised to try to ensure that its most contentious element concerning the Irish border will never have to be implemented. The British Prime Minister, Theresa May, has been in Brussels to try to win further concessions which would help her win parliamentary approval for her Brexit deal. Our Europe correspondent Kevin Connolly has the latest from Brussels.
The Prime Minister turned up to Brussels in the mood to manage expectations of what might be possible at this summit. On her way into the meeting, where she was to appeal directly to fellow EU leaders for concessions to help her sell her deal at Westminster, her message was that there's plenty of work still to be done.
My focus now is on ensuring that I can get those assurances that we need to get this deal over the line, because I genuinely believe it's in the best interests of both sides, the UK and the EU.
The text of Mrs May's appeal, though, released after the evening's talks ended, hinted at a rather passionate and personal address. Let's get this right, she was reported to have told her fellow leaders. Let's hold nothing in reserve. She stressed that a no-deal Brexit was in no one's interests and said she hoped she'd prove that they could trust her to do what was right, not what was easy. She told the leaders that they had to change the perception that the Irish border backstop was a trap from which the UK couldn't escape. The EU leaders' formal response was to emphasise the backstop's temporary nature. But the President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, warned that Westminster was not the only parliament whose approval was required.
I would like to tell our British friends that of course we need the yes of the House of Commons, but we need also the yes of the European Parliament. Both parliaments are important. The one is continental, the other is insular, but the two have the same importance.
So far, at least, there's nothing in that public response from the EU that answers Theresa May's call for help. But this negotiation is, of course, not finished yet. Kevin Connolly, BBC News, Brussels.
Also making the news today, the French car maker Renault says an initial audit looking at the pay of its chairman and chief executive, Carlos Ghosn, has not found any irregularities. Renault's board said its lawyers would continue to review allegations made against him by its partner group Nissan, which recently sacked him as its chairman. The executive is currently being detained in Japan, where he's been charged with financial misconduct. He has denied underreporting his pay package at Nissan. A woman accused by the US of being a Russian agent has pleaded guilty to conspiracy as part of a plea deal at a court in Washington. Maria Butina was accused by prosecutors of trying to infiltrate the National Rifle Association to try and influence American policy towards Russia. The lobby group is closely aligned to Republican politicians, including President Trump. The latest test flight by Sir Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic has reached the edge of space for the first time. Well, the edge of space nearest to us. The aircraft carrying the Spaceship Two passenger rocket ship took off from the Mojave Desert in California. The project to take passengers to this height has been delayed by technical problems and a fatal crash 4 years ago.
So the spaceship, which is right behind me, I don't know if you can see it, is attached to a mothership, it's a giant aeroplane that we built. It is taken up to about 40,000 feet. The spaceship is then dropped from the mothership. It fires its rocket. It goes from 0 to 3,000 miles an hour in 7 to 8 seconds straight up. We all had the most fantastic view of this happening here from the Mojave today. And then, when it's in space, it suddenly it's not moving anymore. People unbuckle their seats and they float around and they look out of these big windows that are in the spaceship.
Now, do you remember this story? 2 weeks ago, Daniela Anthony and John Drennan got engaged in New York and on the same day lost their engagement ring down a drain in Times Square. There was then a worldwide search to find the couple and reunite them with their ring.
So, for the second time.
I can't believe it.
Would you be my wife?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, of course, she said yes. And not only did they get their flights out to California for free, but the show's producers also gave them $12,000 to put towards their wedding as well. Not bad, eh?
Now, Australia's Foreign Minister Marise Payne has just ended her two-day visit to Myanmar. And during the trip, she met with the country's de facto leader, Aung San Suu Kyi. In October, Australia joined the EU and the US in introducing travel and financial sanctions on 5 top Myanmar military officers accused of overseeing brutal violence against Rohingya Muslims. Ms Payne had said that Australia is committed to work towards a long-term and durable solution to the crisis in Rakhine State. But how should that be achieved? Well, earlier I was joined by Tom Woodruff, who works for the advisory group Independent Diplomat.
I think it was very much a familiarisation visit for the new Foreign Minister. I think very positively included in her visit was a trip to Rakhine State, where a lot of Australia's aid assistance is flowing, but also where she would have had an opportunity to speak to a number of Rohingya people directly about the situation on the ground there. And of course, she also met with Aung San Suu Kyi in the capital, as you mentioned. But what's really important now, I think, and what will be ultimately the real sign of success of this visit, is whether the Australian Foreign Minister can really pivot Australia's relationship with Myanmar onto a little bit more of a firmer footing going forward. For the most part, it's been quite a constructive role that Australia's played, with a few inconsistencies around that, particularly in terms of our support for the military.
Because Australia is one of the very few countries which still has quite a close relationship with the government and it even offers financial support. The government, of course, insists that that's limited to humanitarian assistance and so on, but you don't completely agree with that statement.
Well, I mean, when you say the government, I mean, to be very clear, we're talking about the military. And this is a military which the United Nations has found this year likely undertook a campaign of genocide against the Rohingya people. Now, the Australian government gives around $400,000 each year in assistance to that military. Most of it, arguably, is for pretty mundane activities in terms of, or pretty innocent activities in terms of humanitarian assistance and language training and so forth. The real problem, though, of course, is twofold. One is that we are out of step with all of our allies in this approach who have taken a much firmer footing. The United States, Canada, France, the UK, the European Union have all cut ties completely. But second of all, we do not screen who that assistance is provided to. And of course, that means, therefore, that it's completely possible that someone that is receiving part of that assistance has, of course, been involved in some of those atrocities. And I think for any Australian, that is certainly something that is beyond the pale.
Tom Woodruff there speaking to Mariko a little earlier. Now, it took almost a day, but Donald Trump has finally given his response to the jailing of his former lawyer, Michael Cohen. He was sentenced to 3 years in prison on Wednesday for breaking campaign finance laws and committing fraud. Mr. Cohen said he was only acting at his former boss's request. The president waited until Thursday morning to respond on Twitter. He denied directing Mr. Cohen to break the law and said he should have known what he was doing. Mr. Trump also went on to Fox News to make his point.
Let me tell you, I never directed him to do anything wrong. Whatever he did on his own. He's a lawyer. A lawyer who represents a client is supposed to do the right thing. That's why you pay them a lot of money, etc., etc. He is a lawyer. He represents a client. I never directed him to do anything incorrect or wrong.
So what to make of all this? Well, here's our North America reporter, Anthony Zerka.
So Donald Trump, in a series of tweets this morning, laid out what essentially could be his defense against the allegations that he participated in a campaign finance crime, one that Michael Cohen has pleaded guilty to. First of all, he said that he didn't tell Michael Cohen to commit a crime, and then he relied on Michael Cohen as his lawyer to understand what was and wasn't legal. But all of that aside, even if Michael Cohen did do this, he may not have committed a crime at all. That a payment, these hush money payments to 2 women who are alleging affairs with Donald Trump, that doesn't constitute a campaign finance contribution and therefore didn't have to be disclosed. I think what you're going to hear from prosecutors, the ones who got a guilty plea from Michael Cohen, is that Donald Trump's shifting stories on this, originally denying it and then acknowledging the payment and now saying, well, maybe it wasn't a crime. These shifting stories are indications of a knowledge of wrongdoing. Now, Donald Trump will not necessarily be charged in this. There's no indication at this point that he could face criminal indictment, but he definitely has had the finger pointed at him from prosecutors in this Michael Cohen plea agreement, saying that he directed Michael Cohen to make these payments. They also got the National Enquirer, one of the tabloid magazine that made a payment to one of these women, got them to acknowledge, the prosecutors got them to acknowledge that this was done in order to influence the 2016 presidential election. So Donald Trump has essentially outlined his criminal defense in the case that he needs it. The question is, will prosecutors buy that?
Anthony Zerka there. You're watching Newsday on the BBC, live from Singapore and London. Coming up in the programme, the Old Challenge. Pakistan prepares its first ever female blind cricket team. After 8 months on the run, Saddam Hussein has been tracked down and captured by American forces.
Saddam Hussein is finished because he killed our people, our women, our children.
The signatures took only a few minutes, but they brought a formal end to 3.5 years of conflict that has claimed more than 200,000 lives. Before an audience of world leaders, the presidents of Bosnia, Serbia and Croatia put their names to the peace agreement.
The Romanian border was sealed and silent today. Romania has cut itself off from the outside world in order to prevent the details of the presumed massacre in Timișoara from leaking out.
From sex at the White House to a trial for his political life, the Lewinsky affair tonight guaranteed Bill Clinton his place in history as only the second president ever to be impeached.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsday on the BBC. I'm Marie Goy in Singapore.
Yes, hello, I'm Ben Bland in London. These are our top stories. French police say they've killed the gunman who shot dead 3 people near a Christmas market in Strasbourg.
The EU says it won't renegotiate the Brexit deal as Theresa May seeks assurances in Brussels over the controversial backstop plan. Let's now take a look at some front pages from around the world, and let's start with the South China Morning Post, which reports on China's detention of a second Canadian citizen on allegations of harming national security. Of course, relationship between China and Canada have been tense since the arrest of a Chinese woman in Vancouver, a senior executive at telecoms giant Huawei. Meanwhile, the Gulf News leads on the progress of Yemen peace talks and the momentous ceasefire agreement for the port city of Hodeidah. The paper says that food aid may now be able to get into the country and help millions of people who've been on the brink of starvation. And finally, the Japan Times reports on a trade agreement between the EU and Japan, which has been dubbed the world's biggest trade deal. The paper calls the deal a victory for Europe as a free trade champion in the face of course, President Trump's protectionism, as well as the UK's decision to leave the EU.
I did say earlier I like that deal's nickname, the cheese for cars. Apparently Rico mentioned that yesterday. I was watching, but clearly not carefully enough. Anyway, let's move on. The United Nations Secretary-General has made a dramatic appeal to almost 200 countries to step up their fight against global warming and its impact. Antonio Guterres said failure to do so would be suicidal. As the UN meeting in Poland comes to a close, one group of nations, including the Maldives, has warned they face extinction if there isn't immediate action to reduce emissions and limit the rise in global temperatures. Our science editor David Schuckman reports.
Almost a decade ago, an extraordinary publicity stunt. The government of the Maldives in diving gear, highlighting the danger of the level of the sea rising. The man who chaired this underwater meeting is here now.
Governments are not listening, institutions are not listening, no one seems to be listening to what the science is saying.
And what does that mean for your country?
We will disappear.
Negotiators here in Poland are frantically trying to head off the worst effects of global warming. But progress in the talks is incredibly slow. A few governments are dragging their feet.
This is the heart of the process, and we've been allowed in for a couple of minutes. And what's striking is the sheer scale of the event, with nearly 200 governments represented here. And of course they've all brought their own agendas, so getting them all to agree on what to do about climate change is a massive challenge.
Outside the conference, a reminder of why this is hard. Burning fuels like coal releases gases that warm the planet. But many countries, including Poland, rely on coal. I've seen the many jobs that depend on it. Pavel uses coal to heat his home. He's from a mining family. He knows the industry matters here, but also that coal is polluting.
You go outside and want to take a deep breath, the air biting your throat. Your throat. Yes.
Our daughter has a child, something like child asthma, because here the air isn't good for her.
There's the earth coming up. Wow, that's pretty.
50 years ago, this image of our fragile planet raised awareness of potential threats to the environment. Now we're seeing where that might lead. David Schuckman, BBC News in Poland.
Now, Pakistan is in the process of creating its first ever international female blind cricket team. Only a handful of countries in the world have done the same, and the Pakistani team is due to play its first match in January in what will only be the second ever international series of women's blind cricket. Sekunda Komani reports from Islamabad.
These teenage girls are hoping to be selected for Pakistan's first female international blind cricket team. In blind cricket, a specially adapted ball is used, filled with ball bearings that can be heard rattling as the ball travels towards the batsman. Teams are made up of a mix of blind, partially and partially sighted players.
When the children reach this level, it changes them a lot. They feel shy in the beginning and don't feel comfortable in front of others. But after some time, their body language improves and their feelings change dramatically.
Ready? Yes. Go.
The Pakistani male blind cricket team has won a number of trophies, but the women's team was only set up in October.
I had never played cricket before this, but I always thought there should be a female team, just like there is a male one. Before this, I used to do other sports like running and long jump, so I have competed at international level before.
The girls are due to play their first match against Nepal in January. and they say they want to send a message to the rest of the country.
Blind players are capable of doing almost everything sighted players can do. We are no less than the regular team. The government should provide us with the facilities they have given to our national team.
Now, many of us have experienced bullying, but for Yoonbi Kim, it was so bad that it nearly ended her career entirely. The widely acclaimed pianist was able to overcome the trauma, though, and she told us about the joy that she found in playing the piano once again.
It really did almost destroy my love for performing, my love for playing piano and learning music. I had a very tough teacher growing up, but she always believed in me. And when I entered college, I had a really terrible experience with one of my professors where I was bullied, and it affected me greatly. I used to have so much joy performing, but now it became just this paralyzing experience. It was meant to be degrading and humiliating and intimidating and very manipulative. I reached a turning point with all the anxiety and depression I had over performing after reading this book, The Art of Practicing by Madeline Bruiser, and it talked about figuring out what our intentions are as performers, as artists, and also discovering what the intentions are of the audience. Instead of remembering the joy and generosity I felt in wanting to share this beautiful music that I love, I was thinking more about how awful I am if it doesn't go the way it's supposed to go. The thing that really helped bring back my love for performing is trusting and believing in people again. I feel lucky, and that's why I share my experiences and my story so openly, because a lot of people have gone through this, and it's really tough to quiet the kind of negative voices and being critical of yourself. I grew to love music in a very deep way, in a very emotional way, in a very intellectual way. It's like I've entered another dimension. It's kind of like an out-of-body experience when it's a really great performance. I feel just elevated, like on another plane. Like I become one with the music, and the audience gives an energy, and I'm feeding off that energy.
Now, Mariko, if I had a piano here, I would be playing a well-known tune. Goes a little bit like... Yes, I gather it's your birthday. Happy birthday. And you're working. You're meant to be having a day off. You're treating us.
I know, I was, and then Rico called in sick, unfortunately. So
well,
I had one too many glasses of champagne last night.
I hope he buys you a nice birthday cake to wish you happy birthday from all of us. We'll try and get one in the post to you somehow from here in London. You've been watching Newsday on the BBC. I'm Ben Bland in London.
And I'm Marie Goy in Singapore. Don't go away though, because I'll be back with business news and I'll be telling you all about my favorite movie, My Neighbor Totoro, and why it took 30 years for this classic Japanese anime to finally debut in China. I'm going to organize a screening session in London so that you can watch it, Ben.
I'm going to hold you to that. Before we go, we'd like to leave you with these pictures. You might know the New Zealand actor Jason Momoa from the Game of Thrones series. Well, this is him publicising his new film Aquaman by leading a hacker. Thanks for watching.
Hello. Thursday brought us a cold and a frosty day across many parts of the country, but there was some blue sky and some sunshine. This picture was taken by one of our weather watchers in Wiltshire, and I think Friday morning will dawn on a very similar note. Again, it will be a cold and a frosty start to the day with sub-zero temperatures first thing, Plenty of spells of sunshine for many of us through the course of the day to compensate for that fairly chilly start. But temperatures are fairly widely will be below freezing. It won't be quite as cold in the west, particularly for Northern Ireland, where we've got a little bit more cloud first thing Friday morning, keeping temperatures around 4 or 5 degrees. After that cold, frosty start, for many of us it will be a decent, dry-looking day. Always a bit more cloud for Northern Ireland, with a chance of a few showers at times too. Perhaps just 1 or 2 showers around some of these exposed eastern coasts, particularly for eastern Scotland, northeast England. Could even be a wintry flurry down across East Anglia and the southeast. But for the vast majority of people, you'll miss those showers, and temperatures for most of us around 4 to 7 degrees. Then into Friday evening, we see the cloud bringing more outbreaks of rain to parts of Northern Ireland and the west of Scotland too. Eastern areas keeping in that cold air, so you can see the blue colours later on through Friday and then on into Saturday. But some milder air just waiting in the wings here out towards the southwest. That'll be drawn in on this weather front. So a bit of a change in conditions as we head through into the weekend. As a frontal system works in from the west, it'll bring not only that milder air but also some outbreaks of rain, which will for some of us turn to snow. So Saturday, things are turning pretty wet and windy. Some fairly heavy snow and also some ice across Scotland and northern England, combined with some strong winds too. So there could be some travel disruption through the day on Saturday as this weather front bumps into that cold air. You can see the snow across parts of northern England and Scotland too. Could be about 10 to 20 centimetres across central parts of Scotland, even more over the higher ground, 2 to 5 centimetres across parts of northern England. Now, it will turn back to rain further south across the country, where we've got some slightly milder air working in, but you'll really notice the strength of those winds. It will feel around -4 degrees there in Hull. For Northern Ireland, you've got the slightly milder air moving in, so any early snow turning back to rain, but some heavy snow across Scotland could be quite problematic through the day on Saturday. That rain-snow mix slowly easing away towards the east as we head through into the second half of the weekend, but we keep that pretty chilly.
Hello, I'm Ben Bland with BBC News. Our top story. The French Interior Ministers confirmed that police have killed the man who attacked a Christmas market in the city of Strasbourg on Tuesday. Sheriff Shekat was spotted by police in the Neudorf district of the city on Thursday evening. When he opened fire on the officers, they retaliated, killing him in the short exchange of fire. The British Prime Minister Theresa May has urged EU members to help salvage her Brexit deal, but they say they won't renegotiate. Mrs May's been seeking assurances over the controversial Irish border backstop after surviving a no-confidence vote earlier this week. And this video is trending on BBC.com. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has made a dramatic appeal to almost 200 countries to step up their efforts to fight global warming and its impact. He said failure to do so will be suicidal. Now on BBC News, it's time for Hard Talk.
Welcome to a special edition of Hard Talk from Oslo with me, Sarah Montague. My guests have come to the Norwegian capital to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. Nadia Morad and Dr. Denis Mukwege have been jointly awarded this year's prize for their efforts to end the use of sexual violence as a weapon of war and armed conflict. Nadia Morad, from Iraq's Yazidi community, was kidnapped and repeatedly raped by so-called Islamic State. She's highlighted the issue since her escape. Dr. Mukwege is a gynecologist who's treated thousands of women and children sexually abused in the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo. What can be done to stop the use of rape as a weapon of war? Nadia Morad, Dr. Denis Mukwege, welcome to Hard Talk. Dr. Mukwege, tell us how you learned about winning the prize. I think you were in surgery, weren't you?
Exactement, j'étais au bloc opératoire. Normalement, le vendredi, j'opère et donc j'ai entendu un bruit. Je me suis posé la question, qu'est-ce qui se passait? Est-ce que c'est un incendie ou un accident? Et quand j'étais en train de me poser des questions, l'anesthésiste est venu, il m'a sauté au cou en disant « Vous venez d'être nommé pour le prix Nobel de la paix 2018. J'étais complètement touché et surtout ce nombre de femmes qui sont venues me prendre et chanter, danser. C'était très émouvant.
And totally surprising?
À ce moment-là, vraiment, j'étais surpris parce que je n'y avais pas pensé.
Nadia Morad, you have expressed mixed feelings on winning the prize because it changed your life so much.
اب جایزه وقتی ما بکار کری و ما تشتكيش جایزه نوبل نزاني وما مجوز الرسالة كي هن مش تشتي داعش بكاتو جنا كري تشتي ما وعائلة ما وملاتي ما كري أفريا مش خورا قرتي كلا كيف زحمت بو و 3 سالة ديم هرول جهكي إشبروي كي مناديت إنه قواطع معها جارنا تحسم إنه قواطع منها مع سكاربم في شغلي بيهتر ببم أبكيبو از بكيبو مش عليا كيبو مش بر وي إرهابي دبيع ما وجنيد وكا ما ونداكا و نوبل نهشت أفتشت هدفي داعش بجيبي وش عليا كيبا از حزين بوم إجبر أف جايزة بشتي كاركي جالكي بزحمات وبشتي تعدكا جالكي مع سنهات.
You spoke to us on Hard Talk about what happened to you in 2016. To raise awareness, you have had to keep retelling your story, which I know is difficult for you. But what is it that you say to those who don't know what happened to you?
هر جاره که شو مجهه که مدیم قصة خود گو إيش حكومة دارة إيش جامعة راش إيش محكمة را إيش ميديا را وهر جاره که المنافس زحمت بو هر جاره که زد حسيام إنه أزد حسيام بحيبة أزد حسيام بتعبه بس تشتمد بينه عالم زانبه إنه او تشنهات سكناندن بلكي إيرو أزد بيجم بس بهزارة هتانها افتعدلي تياكرن وبهزارة نبايفتن إش حيبي أو حرية تاوان نبو كبايبن بس بيسترش ملوان تياكرن.
And what happened to you was that you were taken from your village along with many other Yazidi women, and with them you were effectively sold and raped many times.
افتش داعش بشكلكي على نيجر وقت هاتي من 2014 بيهتر 6500 كتشكو جني ازديابرن از وی وقتی بخوشکت خرابم از بداغ خرابم بکچت برای خورا بیان استجن برای خورا ام داعش البال فرق نبو کی جنا ابزاروكا كي اتشلونا الباوان اهم بو شرف وكرامتا وانجيب بن اغتسابك نو بفروشن وافتشت نا روجا كابتني يا جارة كابتني بو افتشت هتانوا بحقي 3000 مستمرة.
Dr. Mukwege, you became a gynecologist and built a hospital in the Democratic Republic of Congo to help women in childbirth. But I know when you opened the doors, you had a rather different experience of the patients who was turning up. Tell us what happened.
En effet, lorsque j'avais commencé comme gynécologue obstétricien, ma vision c'était de lutter contre la mortalité maternelle qui est très élevée dans mon pays. Et donc la construction de l'hôpital c'était pour ce but. Mais la première victime que j'avais soignée à l'hôpital, qui s'était présentée, c'était une femme malheureusement qui avait subi un viol avec extrême violence puisqu'elle avait tout son appareil génital complètement en petits morceaux par une balle, une arme à feu. Et je crois que pour moi c'était la première fois. Après 15 ans d'expérience comme gynécologue obstétricien, c'était la première fois que je voyais des lésions comme ça. Évidemment, je pensais que c'est un fait isolé, mais je ne pouvais pas malheureusement imaginer la suite.
And what did happen is that you were presented in the first few months with many more cases of rape.
3 mois après, je m'étais rendu compte que ce n'était pas normal. Parce que en 3 mois, donc 1999, j'avais soigné déjà 45 femmes avec la même histoire. Là, j'ai commencé quand même à comprendre qu'il y avait quelque chose d'anormal, que toutes les femmes viennent avec la même histoire, des viols collectifs avec destruction, torture portant sur l'appareil génital. J'ai compris que ce n'était pas normal.
And this was, I mean, we're talking all ages. How young was your youngest patient?
Aujourd'hui, la plus jeune a seulement 6 mois. Et les plus âgées sont des femmes qui ont au-delà de 80 ans et souvent elles ne connaissent même pas leur âge tellement elles sont âgées et quand elles sont nées, il n'y avait pas d'état civil. Donc je crois que c'est tous les âges. Il n'y a pas... je crois que là, je voulais vraiment attirer l'attention. Ce n'est pas sexuel, c'est une stratégie de destruction. Puisque quand vous voyez les personnes qu'ils prennent, ça n'a rien à voir avec le sexe.
So it is a result of war, is it? It's not everyday violence?
Non, ce n'est pas une violence habituelle. C'est vraiment un viol comme stratégie de guerre, un viol comme terrorisme, un acte de terrorisme.
You've likened it to biological warfare. In what, and you talked about it as an extermination tactic. Can you explain what you mean?
Vous savez que lorsque on attaque l'homme au niveau de l'appareil génital de la femme, ça veut dire tout simplement on attaque l'homme là où il vient. Ça, c'est d'abord quelque chose de... c'est très quelque chose qu'il faut comprendre. Mais lorsqu'on le fait en public, collectivement, avec torture, on traumatise non seulement la victime, mais on traumatise également toute la population qui voit ça. Et en fait, ce traumatisme entraîne souvent que les gens ils perdent la confiance en eux-mêmes. La tendance est de fuir. Donc, il y a un déplacement massif de la population. Lorsqu'on tire dans l'appareil génital, lorsqu'on est violé par plusieurs personnes à la fois, il y a les infections, il y a la destruction de l'appareil génital. Donc, on détruit la capacité de la femme de reproduire, de donner d'autres enfants après. En détruisant une personne, vous empêchez plusieurs personnes de venir en vie. Et à la fin, la femme porte la société sur ses épaules. Dans ma communauté, ce sont les femmes qui portent même l'économie. Lorsque vous les rendez malades, donc vous détruisez l'économie de la communauté. Résultat, c'est que vous avez les mêmes conséquences que les armes classiques, mais malheureusement ici, ça va se transmettre sur des générations à venir. Le VIH peut aller d'une génération à une autre, le traumatisme psychologique peut aller d'une génération à une autre, et donc la transmission peut se faire verticalement, mais aussi transversalement.
Yeah.
Et donc c'est la gravité de cette arme.
Yeah, you've described rape as the least of what these women suffer because of the consequences of it. Do you think it is a deliberate military tactic, that it is actually sanctioned from the senior levels?
On a beaucoup de cas de témoignages où en fait les femmes témoignent comment les chefs militaires décident ce qu'il va faire des femmes. Ça, c'est du côté des victimes. Mais également, on a des soldats qui ont commis ces actes et qui témoignent qu'ils ont eu l'ordre du chef pour commettre ces actes. Je crois que la troisième chose, c'est que lorsque vous faites la même chose, vous ne pouvez pas le faire sans qu'il y ait une planification. Donc vous l'avez fait puisque vous avez planifié de le faire. Et enfin, je crois qu'il faut regarder les types de lésions. Lorsqu'elles sont le même type de lésions, ça veut dire qu'il y a quand même une attente pour faire ces choses. Nous avions même observé que des groupes différents commettaient les actes exactement les mêmes dans le groupe.
Dr. Mukwege is talking about rape as a weapon of war. Did it feel like warfare to you when you and the other Yazidi women were taken?
أكيد أفتشتكي داعش وساكر شروجها بريدة كجنقرنا سلاحك أحربه وفي تشتي وكي إخويابو وهر إرهابك نبز داعش وقتي جروبات إرهابي اتجهنايك دي مجني بين كسلاحك حربي شخورة.
When you consider how it can be stopped, it's recognized in international law as a crime against humanity. What more do you think can be done to stop it? Does it come down to enforcing those laws?
أزبجم ومتبينين إنه هذا عدالتنا به أفتشنا سكنان وأفيك سقمت إنه هدفي مهمك وحلمي مهمك ضحية إنه عدالة شمر بيداني إجبر هر جارك وقت داعش هادي داعش زاني وكشتنو زاني هاد بو كشتني بكا وهاد اغتصابي بكا هاد بو دماركي بكا بس وقت عدالة هبه إنه أموان ببينن أم نزان كي داعش هات يا كشتن أم نزانن كي بازايا أم نزانن كي نهاي حرة بس وقت عدالة هبه أم بينن إنه أفتشنا كرراندن إجبار إرهابي ديوال وان نيري أويد بين ببناء إرهاب وأويد بين جريمة جنابكن وبينن إنه البيشوان شونا محكمة وعدالة هذا حققاندن جاءوا باج تهرن.
Do you ever expect to see the men who raped you in court?